This is Research Like a Pro, episode 29, interview with eCourse student Rebecca. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Research Like a Pro today. I'm Nicole Dyer, and I'm here with Diana Elder, accredited genealogist. And we're also here with one of our eCourse students, Rebecca, and we're excited to talk with her about how the eCourse has been going for her and just her thoughts about her research project. So it should be a fun interview today. I'm going to start with a couple announcements and just stuff that's happening. We are in the midst of our mini challenge, the Research Like a Pro 14-day mini challenge. So how's it going? Make sure you let us know on social media and tag us at Family Locket and with the hashtag Research Like a Pro. Also, Diana and I are getting together this weekend in Tucson, and she's going to be coming to the Tucson Family History Fair, and we are the keynote speakers for that, and we're talking about organization. So we will be sharing on social media how that's going and sharing some pictures and stuff. All right, now I'm going to share a review from one of our listeners, Megan Hillier. She says, I have loved listening to your podcast and think this eCourse is great. I'm working on my AAS degree in family history research right now from BYU-I, which is Brigham Young University, Idaho. But in the past, whenever I tried to start doing my genealogy, I felt overwhelmed and didn't know where to start. I think your book and course are great for people like me who want a methodical approach to improving their family history research. Thanks for all you share on here and on the podcast. We appreciate your review so much. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks for giving us that review, Megan. Sometimes Nicole and I just wonder if anybody's getting anything out of what we put out there. So that's why we're super excited to hear reviews like that. And really why we're excited to talk to Rebecca. We started the eCourse in September of 2018, so just a few months ago. And we wondered if people working through it would have the same progress and same results as our study group members who we worked with really closely. And so this is going to be really fun to hear from Rebecca how it's been. So Rebecca, welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us just a little bit about your background in family history research?
So I started doing family research about 20 years ago. Started with sitting with my grandma and looking at pictures. About 5 years or so, though, I have become a little bit more serious about sharing that research. Specifically sharing in a way that shows I've done the research correctly and that it's well documented.
So what were you doing when you first started? Did you record your research like in a genealogy program, or what were you doing to keep track of your research? I'm just always curious what people are doing or what they started with.
I'll have to admit I'm very guilty of the whole ancestry shaky leaf syndrome when I started. I basically started looking at other family trees and copying what they had, and I really didn't go into the analysis of what I found until I found a couple of things that didn't make sense, and then that started making me dig further.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what happens to all of us. It's easy until it's not easy, and then we have to figure out what to do next. So how did you hear about the Research Like a Pro book and the eCourse?
I do believe I was in one of the Facebook groups that I'm in. I'm in several genealogy-related Facebook groups. And so I first ordered the book, and then I moved on to the eCourse from there.
I know when we first published the book, we asked a lot of our blogger friends to review it for us and get the word out because, that's one of the tricks is getting the word out about something that you're doing. And so we had a lot of people that were really kind and posted a lot about it. So that was so great. And why did you want to try the eCourse versus like just following the process from the book?
So I started probably, and I don't remember when I ordered the book, but I started going through the first couple chapters, and with 2 kids, I don't have much time to read. So I quickly joined the Facebook group. And I think it was all of the wonderful support that I was seeing in the Facebook group, both from you and Nicole, as well as from everybody else that was going through the same process. And then when I saw that the eCourse was on sale around Christmas time, I wanted to give it a shot. And I think it really helped keep me accountable to myself during the process, going through the webinar and the additional resources and actually marking it as complete. Before I did that, I wanted to really make sure that I'd done the research in the best way possible.
That's awesome. I love that. I think Nicole and I are we're kind of geeks like that too. We love checking off check boxes and having our lists and saying that something is complete. It just makes you feel so good about something.
That is not geeky. That is normal.
Nope, I don't know that it's that normal.
Okay, cool. So that's awesome that you joined the eCourse. Thank you for taking a chance on it. So tell us, when you first jumped into the first assignment with creating an objective, how did that really make a difference for you? And would you be willing to share your objective?
I can. So let me first share my objective. So my objective was to prove or disprove that Daniel Hawley, born October of 1808 in Allegany County, New York, and Sarah Sally Huff, born on May 14, 1813 in Allegany County, New York, are the parents of William Hawley, who was born on August 31st, 1836 in the community of Mount Washington, Urbana, Steuben County, New York. So it's interesting. I had already knew the questions I wanted to ask. I've been researching the William Hawley family they're the first family I started talking to my grandmother about so many years. Mm-hmm. So I already knew the questions I had, but phrasing it as an objective and really, I think the key thing was adding those additional details in. Mm-hmm. I found that very helpful. And I found that I kept looking back to it, even though I knew it by heart. I kept looking back to it to keep me focused and on track.
It does that. That's what I notice about that objective, is that when you're researching, you just keep coming back to that. This is what I need. These are the dates, the places. So cool. So you are basically trying to prove or disprove your hypothesis, which was that the certain couple were the parents of William Hawley, which is, I'm assuming, your known ancestor.
Correct. He's my second great-grandfather.
Yes. Okay, cool. So you had William Hawley, and then you had this hypothesis that Daniel Hawley and Sarah Sally Huff were the parents. So you were pretty sure at this point when you started that these were the parents, or were you just like maybe 50-50?
I would actually say that I was probably about, I'm going to say 95 now. About then I would say I was 99 to 100. Mm-hmm. But research has uncovered a few things. So
interesting. Well, let's get to that. Let's talk about that soon.
I just have to comment here on the objective. I love, Rebecca, that you found it was so helpful to put in all the details, because I think a lot of our listeners will find that it seems like the objective is kind of dry, and it is supposed to be dry. It's not supposed to be exciting. You are putting in there your specific dates and places, and it really does guide you. Whenever I start a client project, if I don't get that objective just like that, I just feel a little bit lost in the research. I have to do that first. So I'm really glad that you found that worked for you too. So the second in the process of Research Like a Pro is doing your timeline analysis. And this is, where you look at everything you've ever found and put it into a timeline and analyze it. So how did that work for you?
Well, as you can see I know you've seen my research report, I love timelines. I've been using them for years, and I have a lot of research on William and his family. Been digging up little things, like I said, for years, but I think the key thing for me was with the timeline report is I had never really put in the sources and the citations and analyzed the sources in the way that was recommended through the Research Like a Pro process. So I think that I found very helpful. Really not just having the details, but reminding myself where I found them, because it could have been several years before that.
And also really analyzing how valuable or how reliable each piece of information is, especially when you've got that conflicting information, which is the better date, depending on who was the informant and that type of thing. So yeah, we love the timeline analysis. It's one of our favorite parts. I just had another question here for you. Did that turn up something or anything that you didn't know before your timeline analysis? Were there things you'd forgotten maybe or hadn't noticed?
In this case, I would say not necessarily. I definitely found things that I hadn't cited correctly. And one of the tools that I used with timeline analysis was I had a side-by-side comparison of William and Daniel, who I believe to be his father, and really set that up in a manner where I could see it by year, where each one of the men were location-wise. And so I think I learned a lot more that way. And, at the time, believe that actually helped me confirm even more that they were in the same locations at the same time.
Yeah, I love that, a side-by-side analysis of the child and the parents and putting it all together. I think that's a great tool for your analysis. It's kind of fun because your timeline analysis doesn't have to always be just one way. Depending on the project, you can do some variations on it. And we've seen a lot of interesting things come through both the study group and then some of the eCourse people with really creative ways people have set up that timeline.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I really like that. So the next step was the locality guide. So this is where in the eCourse you gather up information and links to different record groups, and you put it all into one place so that you can have a reference about that locality. So Rebecca, tell us about your experience with creating a locality guide.
So this one's interesting because I'll admit I had my doubts at first. It seemed like a lot of work to write down what I believed that I already knew. Obviously, I've been researching my location guide was based in Steuben County, New York, and I've been researching for so long in there, specifically in the community of Mount Washington, which isn't even really a government location itself, just a little village. But I really found that after completing it, I learned a lot more than I thought I knew already. And I've gone back and referenced it several times. And I also appreciate the fact that in continuing research, I'll be able to go back and reference it again.
That's a really good point, that it really brings you up to this level of, even if you forget something that you once knew, you can still reference this and you can kind of remind yourself, and it kind of makes it so that you're more effective the next time you come back to it. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I also love with locality guides that once you have your basic guide done, we're always turning up new sources. There's a new collection that comes online, or there's something that you discover that pertains to your locality. And then it's so easy to throw that link into your guide because it's already set up and it's made, and we can keep adding to them. These are fluid guides that can keep helping us. In fact, I really like, after I complete a research project, to go back and take any new sources that I found and put those into a guide, because that saves me time in the future when I come back to that location. So I love, though, Rebecca, I have to say that kind of cracks me up that you had your doubts about the locality guide. We've heard that before. In fact, our study group member we had on before, Sherry Hessick, she commented about how she was really not looking forward to this assignment. And then it turned out to be her favorite one. So I always like to hear what people have to say about the locality guide. So the next part in the Research Like a Pro process is the research planning. And we have 3 different steps on that. First of all, we come up with a working hypothesis, and then we identify all the sources that might help us to further our research. And then we have to prioritize those sources and decide what's the very best order to do those searches. So tell us about your research planning experience. Had you done this before? Did it make a difference? How did it work for you?
I had never formally created a research plan. I mean, I had my notebook that I wrote down, I'm going to search this location, and sometimes I put that in a research log. Sometimes I cited it, sometimes I didn't. But I think really going through the research plan and prioritizing the sources, as far as what was really important to find that would provide me the answers I was looking for, I think that's the part I found the most helpful. And it was another way to keep me on track. When I started going off because there was this other cool source that I found, I moved back because it wasn't on my prioritized list, or I rearranged things.
I love that. It's so easy to want to go just jump around so much, but I agree totally with you. Having that list, going right down your plan, it just really helps make so much progress. I'm just looking here at your research plan, and I love how you put your prioritized research strategy into a table. You had 2 separate things. You were searching for the birth and baptism, and then you were searching for the marriages. And I just love how you set that up in a table with the links and what you were really looking for and locations and everything. You've done such great work and done some really interesting creative ways in showing us that work. Going back to research planning, for a minute. You mentioned that you kind of wanted to go off on these tangents. So did you keep track? Did you put those in another place for things that you wanted to search in the future? Or what did you do with those ideas that you kept having?
I did. I put them in the section in the research plan for additional or future research questions. And a lot of them were questions I already knew that I had, but while going through the documentation, it made me think about them again. And having them there in that one spot that I can come back and look at is going to be helpful in the future.
It kind of takes the stress off of having to remember everything, right? Once you just get it written down, then you can forget about it and not have to worry about it because you know it's there somewhere for you.
That makes so much sense. I think before we really were researchers, when we just were searchers, we were really good at just kind of in the session that we were in, we would keep everything in our minds and we wouldn't really, keep track, and we would just kind of search. And I think a lot of us do that, where we have all these thoughts and ideas and we just go do them right then instead of writing them down. Like, I'm going to do this later. Right now I'm following this plan, because we didn't really write down a plan. So the great thing about doing the process is that everything that we do is kind of written down. We've kind of made a plan first. We don't just go willy-nilly. And then we can continue to follow the plan over multiple sessions of research, which really makes you able to make more progress and to actually get somewhere. So it's neat to kind of hear that the future research suggestions worked for you, because it really works for me. And that was one of the things that I started doing before I even learned how to do this. I would have a list of to-do items and I would just fill that out with tons of things. Whenever I had an idea, I'm going to do this next, and here's something else to look for, so that I could remember them.
Absolutely. And I think I'd always created that to-do list like you mentioned, but having it in the document research plan about William gives me a better guide going forward. It helped me not to feel so overwhelmed to see just this huge list of to-do items.
Yeah, it does get overwhelming. Well, let's move on to talk about source citations and the research log assignment. So this is the part where you actually follow your research plan and you keep a source citation for everything that you look at and put it right into your research log. So tell us, how did that go for you? And I know you've done source citations in the past, so tell us about that.
So this was an interesting one to me because I kept going back and forth. I know, Diana, you had mentioned in the webinar that there's no real wrong way to keep a research log as long as you do it. So I didn't use the Excel method necessarily because I had already had so much research. I used RootsMagic as my genealogy software. And they have a really nice research log feature where you can actually put your objective in and record searches and the results. And so I used the methodology from Research Like a Pro process, but I used RootsMagic to go through and really track my search. And so I found that very helpful.
I just want to cut in right here real quick and say that is so great that you made it your own. Used the methodology, but then did it the way that your brain worked and what worked well with you.
And as far as the sources and citations, I've been working for a while trying to really make sure that I document things, but I have definitely found through this process areas that I could have improved on a couple of years ago. I think I actually found a bibliography, citation, or source, and the only word there was newsletter. I'm like, oh, that's not very helpful.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I have a few of those from years past too. Oh, frustrating.
Yeah. So between going through the research log process as well as now writing up my research report and adding those footnotes in the works cited page, I've gone through and corrected probably 10 or so in the last couple of days and made them more accurate and more informative.
That's awesome. And don't you find that creating your source citations, it really does get easier? Because I know a lot of our listeners, genealogists, they're just so overwhelmed with doing source citations. But are you finding that they're getting easier now that you're doing them more consistently? Well, you've been doing them for years, but how are you feeling about creating those now?
I do think they get easier. And whether you do it on paper or use a tool like RootsMagic, I love the fact that RootsMagic uses the evidence explained citation formats. And so I feel confident in starting with that and then being able to add my own details in. And that makes it a lot easier.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. So anybody listening who's really struggling with that, so RootsMagic maybe would be a good program to try. And we've talked a little bit about genealogy programs. So that's good. Nicole and I have not used RootsMagic very much, and we have not used citations with it before. So I'm glad to know. that you really like the way that works for you. Okay, so let's talk about report writing. I think you're right in the middle of writing your report. How is that coming together for you? Are you almost finished, or how is the writing process helping you figure out your research and what you found?
I would say I'm about 25% through it. Although I was very sure about my objective and the answer to that objective in the beginning, through my research and a lot of DNA analysis, I think I've actually realized I'm going down the wrong path. It's a close path. It turns out that it may not be Daniel that is William's father, but it may be one of his brothers, which throws out years of research in some ways. It's a little disappointing. But at the same point, I think really writing up this report is going to hopefully put that knowledge out there in a way that other people can digest and understand. And when I put a fact out there that differs from what other people have believed for years, that'll be the proof behind it. So
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and I think you'll find too that when you're in the midst of a project, everything is so clear in your mind. But if you leave that even for a few weeks or months and you come back to it, it's like you have to start over again, remembering your thought process. And so it's so much better just to get it all written after you've been in the thick of the research and you know exactly what you want to say. So I'm excited to read your finished report, especially because of this DNA evidence. And I think a lot of us are heading down that DNA road of trying to prove our traditional hypotheses about our families with DNA. So I'm pretty sure that you're not the only one who's disappointed that maybe you're heading down the wrong path. In fact, we've headed down the wrong path just with traditional research, right, Nicole?
Yeah, when we first started and just thought, oh yeah, this is the right parent without bothering to really confirm. So yeah, it's easy to do.
Well, and the interesting thing for me is I still have not found documentation as far as who's William's parents are. And so my original hypothesis that I was so sure about was actually due to DNA analysis, because I had found so many of Daniel and Sarah's descendants that we were closely related to. I want to say I was up near to 50 or 60 different descendants of their family. But really digging into the analysis further with what I've learned about DNA analysis in the last few years allowed me to dig deeper and come to a different conclusion, whether I liked it or not.
That's right. But you do know that you are still related to Daniel Hawley because of the matches. So he is definitely probably a great great uncle. I think your conclusion now is that one of his brothers is your great great grandfather. Is that correct?
That's what I'm thinking, yes. I have no idea who those men are. It's another research project coming up.
Yes, it is. And that is so true. Sometimes it takes several of these projects to break down our brick walls. So your next project is going to be what?
I'm struggling a little bit in deciding this, but I think it will be finding the siblings of Daniel Hawley. My original thought was to find the children of William Hawley, not my William Hawley, who I believe is Daniel's father. But then I realized that I hadn't proved that yet either. So I think I'm going to start with just trying to find any siblings of Daniel and go from there. But that'll be an interesting one because I don't have any of that research really down yet.
So one of the things that I think we all need to understand is that when we have a project and we come to the end of it like this and you didn't get the conclusion that you wanted, we have to really remember how valuable this project was. Because if you hadn't gone through this entire process, you would still be saying Daniel was probably the father, right? And now you can go off on a different tangent and, hopefully find, that William was the father of Daniel. Now you can hopefully find the correct connections. So I think we always need to remember that every project is valuable, whether we actually prove our hypothesis or not. So, Nicole, any final thoughts as we kind of wrap up this episode?
Yes, I was just thinking about all the wonderful DNA analysis that Rebecca did. I'm very impressed. I'm just looking at her documents here that she shared in the Facebook group. And I think everyone listening would probably learn a lot from, if you're in our Facebook group, from looking at Rebecca's work. And she did a fabulous job. She researched her research plan and she did some DNA analysis and created a separate document for all of her DNA matches and made tables there showing all of the shared DNA and the conclusions that she drew from that. So I just think that is a wonderful way to really combine the DNA analysis with the traditional genealogy research and the documentary evidence to just come to an amazing conclusion. So good job, Rebecca.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that.
And I just want to do a little shout out. Rebecca mentioned our Facebook group. So anyone who is listening, if you purchase our book, either the ebook or the print book, you can be part of the Research Like a Pro Facebook group. You don't have to be part of the eCourse or study group to get started in the Facebook group. And you can go through the whole process and just from the book, posting your objectives, getting feedback on, everything along the way. So if you're not part of that and you've purchased the book, consider being part of that. The process is, I believe you email Nicole the receipt of your book or email her.
Yep, just let me know, Nicole@familylocket.com, and email me and I'll get you in the Facebook group. And if you are not comfortable with Facebook, but you'd still like some feedback, then in the eCourse, we can definitely give you that feedback, or you can just email us if you have questions.
Right. The eCourse has kind of a fun thing just for the eCourse people or study group people, and it's lifetime access to the Ask Diana office hours. So once a month, Nicole and I have a call. We actually do a video chat. It's a live streaming on YouTube. And if you have a question, you can email me the question. And then during the office hours, we talk about your question and we give you help for your own personal research. And so we've had some really fun ones in the past, and we have another one coming up. So anyone enrolled in the eCourse or study group from the past will be able to come on. So that's kind of a fun way that you get one-on-one help with Nicole and I through another medium, because we really want to help everybody out there. We're so excited about the Research Like a Pro process that we just love sharing and helping. And we're especially grateful to people like Rebecca who have tried it out, given us a chance. And thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming on today and talking all about your research and your project. Do you have any closing thoughts or ideas for us?
Well, thank you. I truly enjoyed being on the podcast, but I think I also need to do a big thank you in general, because going through this process, although there are several steps, it is simplified in a way that allows me to do it correctly, even though I work full time and have kids and all those things that get in the way of genealogy research. But it's really allowed me to get through the process successfully and make big strides. And I appreciate that. And the Facebook group is one of the biggest parts of that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. This has been really, really fun to chat in person, not just on Facebook.
Right. It is cool. Rebecca, we don't have to include this, but do you want to share your blog? I know that you mentioned you have a blog.
I do. It's called Genealogist on a Journey, because genealogy is a journey. You're going to take so many wrong turns and come back to the same path over and over again sometimes. So it's genealogistonajourney.net.
Cool. Thank you. I think some of our listeners would be interested in connecting with you on your blog. So thank you.
All right, everyone. I think that we are wrapping this up for today's podcast. Thanks so much for listening. And if you're interested in learning more about the eCourse or the book, head on over to familylocket.com and you can read all about Nicole and I and what we're doing here. So thanks for listening, and everyone have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro.